In 4 days, I'm going to be driving my 1983 Audi Quattro 400 miles with some friends of mine on the Overcrest rally. And I know 400 miles isn't really anything special to write home about, but it's a fun way to kind of set a goal, to get a few things done on the car, to hopefully make it more drivable, more enjoyable, and hopefully more reliable. Before we get into that, I just want to announce that I bought a new vlogging camera. I don't really like the term vlogging or influencers or any of that stuff, but I really wanted a mirrorless camera, something in between the crazy cinema level red camera that I use on my professional shoots with the anamorphic lenses and all that stuff, but something a little bit better than my DJI Pocket 3. So I landed on a Panasonic S1R2 and I have no idea how to use it. I just got it yesterday in the mail, so turned it on for the first time this morning. This isn't a camera review channel, so I'm not really going to talk about it much, but if I mess something up, it's because I have no idea how to use this thing. So let's get back to the car. Since the very first day I owned this car, enemy number one has been my slipping alternator belt, and the previous owner gave me a special bolt with a gear on it, and he says, here is the answer to all your problems. I sourced this bolt out of Europe and it's very special and it'll fix everything. And the bolt's not that special. I've seen it before on my E30, and all it really does is that little gear forces the bolt to turn against the bracket, and it forces the belt to be tight when you tighten the bolt. The problem is, I don't think this guy had ever looked under the car and actually seen this alternator bracket, because for that to work, it requires the bracket to have the same exact gearing on itself as the bolt does. And this bracket just looks like some kind of thrown together thing. I don't know if it's even the stock one. I'm actually pretty surprised that this thing is still able to charge the battery with it spinning like this, and you can see a little bit of caked on rubber up here on the motor mount. I actually changed this belt on my drive up to Cape Flattery on the side of the road, which was about an 800-mile drive, and I put another 1,000 miles on the car after that, so cannot believe that it's still hanging in there. You can see how bad the deflection is. This engine was actually swapped out of a slightly newer Audi. It's still an inline 5 turbo, but it's a little bit more reliable. It makes a tiny bit more horsepower from the Audi 5000 that it came from, and I'm not really sure if this is the stock alternator bracket or not. They deleted the air conditioning, so they might have done something custom here, but it looks like it's got just its own part of the pulley and its own belt, so I'm kind of surprised that this design is so bad. There's literally a through bolt holding this thing tight, which is pretty weak. It would be really cool to have somebody come in here and make some crazy like custom CNC bracket for it, but I wasn't quite ready to spend that amount of money on it. I've invested about $30 into it right here, and what I came up with was having this double heim joint with a threaded piece in the middle, and that is what is going to adjust the bracket, you know, looser and tighter. And then I'm also mimicking the stock bracket with these steel motorcycle exhaust mounts is what these are. And the way it's gonna work is I will have the bracket just like it is on the alternator right now. The heim joint is going to go in between that and the alternator and pretty much get rid of that bracket that's in there now, and hopefully that'll be a nice solution to keep this thing tight. Oh, and that's not good either. That's great. All right, got this thing moving. That's good. Once I get this all back together, I'm definitely going to do a stress test on it. I'm going to put this old belt back on and just turn on everything, the headlights, the seat warmers, and just take it for a nice long drive. And if I can't get this thing to smoke, then a brand new one will probably be even better. If you all have other ideas of how I can do this, I would love to hear it in the comments. I'm definitely not opposed to trying again on version 2. This is just my first attempt at it, and I would love to have this heim joint just going straight from the engine block to the alternator, but it's going to be at way too much of an angle for that to work. And I thought about maybe getting a really long bolt and spacing it out, but I figured the bolt would eventually just end up bending, so it's kind of why I'm messing around with this bracket thing. I don't exactly love the idea, but maybe we'll think of something better in the future. I think for now, this is probably going to work. They say you want the belt to be at about 1/4 to 1/2 inch of deflection, but I'm not really sure how you're supposed to measure that exactly. How hard are you supposed to push on it? Kind of just one of those feel things. You just go until it feels tight, because if you get it too tight, you'll mess up the bearings inside the alternator. All right, I'm pretty confident this is going to work just fine, so let's give it a shot. So that all seems like it's working pretty good. You can still see the belt moving around a little bit though, because the pulley is actually bent on the alternator. So I should probably just replace that whole thing anyways here pretty soon. I've got to go out to the airport and pick up some baggage that didn't make my connection last night. So perfect opportunity to throw the bumper back on this thing, see if we can really put this alternator through its paces and get that belt to slip. If not, then I think we're good to go for now. So it'll also be a fun opportunity for me to put the new camera in the car and kind of mount it with the suction cup so we can see how it reacts, if it's too shaky or not, because I would love to be able to use this camera for some in-car stuff as well. This gauge is a little hard to read, but it was at about 13 or so, 14 maybe. Turning both seat warmers on, I'm turning the headlights on, and it's kind of a warm day, so the fan is on right now. So that is absolutely maxing out the system as far as I can tell. It's down to about 11, which is fairly normal. This battery might need to be changed because it doesn't seem like it holds voltage very well. We'll see if I can smoke this alternator belt or not. Hopefully I have the jump box in the back just in case. Everything went great with the alternator. The battery's charging really nicely and it doesn't seem like it's slipping under load, so that's great. But I almost didn't make it home, and it's because I almost ran out of gas. I've been purposely trying to run the car low on gas so I can not only get an idea of what the gas gauge looks like when it's low, but I also want to replace the O-ring in the gas tank where the fuel sender goes because I can smell gas fumes in the car and I'm pretty sure that it's leaking. I also forgot to mention that on the drive to the airport, the speedometer stopped working. So, you check one thing off the box and another thing pops up. So this car has quite an uncommon gas tank setup. It's got a 23-gallon gas tank that's behind the rear seat, kind of over the axle. And I'm not sure if it was just for simplification or what, because obviously a lot of other cars that are all-wheel drive put gas tanks, down low, but it makes the trunk incredibly small, which is very annoying. Just kind of awkward having the thing right there behind the carpet. Let's see if this thing's got any airlift in it. I would definitely recommend for any car getting one of these USB rechargeable air pumps. It's like one of those technology things that you never really thought existed, but it's so simple with how good battery technology is and stuff nowadays. Okay, I'm not sure why this is leaking. Oh, here we go. There you go. You just set your PSI and you walk away. I'll let that pump up for a little bit. It'll stop automatically, but the tire was at 8 PSI if you're wondering. I'm not sure if that would have got me very far, but it's definitely got a little bit of a leak. I haven't pumped it up for probably 8 months, so that's not bad. This is the fuel sender right here, and last summer I pulled it out to kind of test it. My gas gauge only goes up about halfway, and I pulled this thing apart, kind of saw what was going on with it. Looks like it's working just fine. There might be some issues with the resistance, and it might just be a ground, but when I went to put it back together, the gasket for it was ripped in half, and I had another gasket that was kind of like the right size for it, but wasn't a fuel-safe gasket. Very convenient that there's almost no gas in here. So this is what a fuel sender looks like, and this is pretty common in most cars. There's just a little bubble thing here that kind of floats in the gas lane. As you fill the gas tank up, it changes the level on this potentiometer, which basically measures resistance. And once it gets to the top, it just tells your gas gauge that the tank is full and, everywhere in between. I've got that sender positioned so that it would be at a full gas tank. So let's turn the key on and see where it reads. It usually only goes about halfway, maybe a tiny bit more. It's also very slow to move because as you're driving the car around, you don't want the gas gauge just like flicking up and down constantly. That would be extremely annoying. Luckily, when the gas tank is empty, it reads exactly on the empty line, so I've come to trust that, and I know exactly where that line is now that I've ran the car almost out of gas a couple of times. So what I'm really curious about is if I make a new ground for that sender, if maybe it'll actually make it work a little bit better. So I had a genius idea, was to just jumper that sender pin, because now it's sending 0 ohms to the gauge, and look, it's reading completely full to the max. I think that kind of proves that it's actually the sender that's malfunctioning, so I would love to be able to clean that one out really quick and see maybe there's a bad connection on it or something. So this thing starts off at about 250 ohms, and as you go up, adding fuel to the tank, goes up to about just under 40. If we can figure out how to get that closer to 0, I think the gauge will read a lot closer. Anything that's on the opposite side of this black thing basically reads 40. I got my brand new fuel sender gasket thing here that I ordered from Laudiswell, Kingsbridge, Devon, United Kingdom. Took about a month to get, so let's put this in finally, and maybe the car will stop smelling like gas. One day down already, so 3 more days to go before the overcrest drive. It went by just like that. I got the alternator all fixed up though, so that makes me really happy. And hopefully the gas tank won't be smelling anymore with that new O-ring. I wasn't able to fix that fuel sender, you know, I took it apart, I resoldered that one little wire, and still it's only showing 40 ohms, so I'd like to get that thing down to 0, but I can't figure out what's wrong with it, so I'll probably just end up buying a new one. Luckily, a lot of the old parts on this car were taken from like Volkswagen Rabbits, so some of the stuff transfers, which is really cool. But today I'm gonna put the car way up on the lift and we're gonna pull the driveline out because I want to fix the carrier bearing on the driveline. I've been getting some weird vibrations in the car at freeway speeds and kind of worried me for a while. I thought it might be the wheels or an axle or something, but I know for sure that carrier bearing is pretty worn out because you can see it moving around quite a bit when you get under here. So we'll get that pulled out. Hopefully we get that all fixed up before Friday night. So I figured before I do this driveline bearing, I should probably take the exhaust off, would make it a lot easier. And since we're most likely going to cut the resonator out, I wanted to see what the baseline was for that. And it's about 60 decibels when I'm revving it here in the driveway. The car isn't very loud on the inside. There's got a lot of like sound deadening and things like that in it still. And I feel like you hear more noises coming from that bearing and from the transmission rather than the actual exhaust. So I would love to free that thing up a little bit and actually hear some of that 5-cylinder turbo. I'm not even gonna bother trying to get some of these bolts out. I'm just gonna cut them because they're so incredibly rusty, it's not even worth it. I was using the cutoff wheel for a dramatic effect because I was filming the Instagram video at the same time, but the Sawzall is actually much better for something like this. It makes way less sparks. Oh, that's nasty. I'm really excited to see what the catalytic converter looks like under here. It passed emissions, so it must not be in terrible shape. Looks like it's been used, that's for sure. It's got a little, like it's burning up or something, which is probably pretty common. I'm a little bit worried about getting these bolts completely out because they're literally so rusted in, but we'll see what a hammer can do. There's definitely some little chunks of rust or something in here. Probably a good time to get it cleaned out anyways. I guess that's just carbon deposits. All right, let's see what this thing sounds like with no exhaust. I've had success with cutting exhausts off of old Volkswagens and them sounding good, but I doubt this one. We'll see. Turbo cars, you never know, you might get lucky. It's definitely a little loud. Definitely need to put some gas in here first. That's not gonna be easy. I think it's going in. I almost forgot that the muffler is kind of just hanging back here. And it would probably be fine on these 2 bushings, but the problem is it's hitting the axle, and that's definitely not okay. This is gonna be a little bit of a problem if I can't get this out. Oh. There we go. Oh, give this thing a little rattle can while I'm at it. There's really no reason to drive this thing with no exhaust other than the sheer entertainment value for you all and my dying curiosity to know what this thing's gonna sound like. Neighbors should be texting me any minute now. All right, this thing's kind of loud, but it sounds insane. Oh yeah! We're still only hitting 65 or 70 on here. I feel like it's more because my ears hurt a tiny bit. Thing is it's like 65 all the time. That's the annoying part. Gas is running out again. You can hear the fuel pump getting really loud, you know. Here we are again. That's all the fun for now. I should probably get back to what really matters, and that's fixing this drive shaft bearing. My dad's gonna come over tomorrow and we're gonna cut this resonator out of the exhaust, and then he's gonna help me weld it up. And I'm kind of hoping that it's a happy medium between the car being stock and boring and loud and obnoxious. So I did really like the way it sounded when it was at full throttle, but sitting at idle, it was way too much. The drive shaft shouldn't be too hard to get out. I always say that things are gonna be pretty easy, and honestly, this is only 6 bolts in the front, 6 bolts in the back, and then just 2 holding on the carrier bearing. It might be a little bit difficult getting the drive shaft separated because it's a big bolt in between there that probably hasn't been touched in a long time. But once you do that, you just put the new bearing on, put it all back in the car, and hopefully it's nice and balanced. This worn out bearing might not be the cause of the vibration, but it actually might be a result from something vibrating and wearing it out. And you can really see how much it's sagging here. A thing I forgot to mention is when I shift and let the clutch out a little bit too hard, you hear a giant thud like that. That sounds exactly like that. So I'm wondering if this is probably the culprit of what's causing that. Oh, all right, that's one side. Front side's out now. I left the easiest part for last. This carrier bearing is only 2 bolts. Or at least I thought it was easy. Of course, now there's a nut up here that's supposed to be held captive in this little slot, but it's so rusted that it's not moving very well and it's just spinning inside of that. So trying to jam a screwdriver or something in there to hold it while I hit it with the impact. Maybe I should douse it with some penetrating spray. I don't know how to get that dang thing out, but this is why working on cars is fun, because I guarantee you the second I get it, I'm gonna be real happy. I had a zip tie holding it up so it wouldn't just fall on me. Phew. Overwhelming feeling of satisfaction. Because that moment right there. So this honking thing is out of the car now, and I was curious if I could actually replace this thing with it in the car, but I watched a video of some other guys doing this and they took it all the way out. Problem is there's a gigantic bolt in here that you have to remove, and it's kind of being blocked by the U-joint, so we'll see if I can get a wrench on there or not. All right, I finally got that thing apart, and you can see how saggy it is. Look at how low that thing is compared to where it should be, you know, in the center. It looks like there's a bunch of like thread locker or something, or at least that's what it smells like all along these splines. At first it scared me because I saw this weird like cracked looking thing, and I was like, uh-oh, splines are cracked. We're gonna need a new drive shaft, but I think we're all good. So I'll have to hammer this bearing off. Luckily, I remembered to mark the drive shaft where it's supposed to be clocked, because you don't want to have it clocked the wrong direction. These drive shafts are balanced from the factory, and not that mine's really balanced very well anymore, at least it's what it seems like, but I don't want to make it any worse. So pull that old bearing off, get the new one on, hopefully fairly easy. We'll see. Throw this thing back in the car, and then it'll be drivable again. Hopefully. Probably not the smartest idea to take this thing all apart right before the rally, but we'll be fine. It's Thursday already, so we really only have 2 days left. I can't believe how fast the days go by in the garage. I really only work on the car for about 5 hours a day. I'm not exactly burning the midnight oil on it right now. I want to have this thing done today though, because I want to drive it around, give it a shakedown on Friday to make sure all this stuff is functioning properly and that the bolts aren't coming loose. I got a segment of exhaust right here for our resonator delete. So went and picked that up today. I got some brand new bolts at the hardware store for the Driveline so that I can replace some of those ones that were starting to look a little bit stripped. I feel kind of silly. I used that old screwdriver to get the drive shaft apart, and I had like a whole set of like nice chisel type things that I could have been using the whole time. So whatever, I'll use those to get the bearing off. We'll put that brand new one back on. Hopefully it's a perfect fit. And then my dad's gonna be here any minute to start cutting this exhaust. So we'll film some of that too. Hey, can really smell that thread locker. I think that's what that is. I really didn't even have to hit this thing that hard. It was more so just like 20 soft, well-placed blows, but glad to have that off. Now I just need to make sure the other one fits, but it looks like it's the exact same thing. My dad just rolled up, so let's see what's up with him.
I'm going to take the blade and I'm going to go like right here, just maybe cut this first, or actually cut all the way through this, and then I can grind this down. That's straight as it's going in. Same thing with this side. It looks like chop it right there. We need that much. I got the drop saw so we can make some nice straight cuts.
While my dad's setting up all that welding stuff, I'm going to get this bearing hammered on here. You want to find a socket that's exactly the same size as the inner race and kind of just slip that thing on. Press it with your hand if you can, and then I'll just hammer it the rest of the way, hopefully nice and straight, because you don't really want to get it sideways. Nice. This should be a lot easier to slide back together than it was to get off. Make sure I've lined my markings up nice, get that bolt in there and tighten it up. So the reason my dad is taking so much time cutting this thing with the torch and not just chopping it with a cutoff wheel is that we're trying to get as much of the metal preserved as possible where it's straight. The problem with this resonator is they welded it on right where there was two bends going directly into a straight piece. So it's going to make it a lot easier if we're just welding a straight together rather than having to weld up some type of bend on it. These nuts aren't in great condition, and I realized that some brand new bolts threaded in there a lot easier. So get this thing back up in there and we'll have a drivable car again. I sound like I'm on a TV show on Motor Trend.
I haven't used this torch for a long time. It brings back a lot of good memories.
It's pretty cool that I was actually able to find some Allen bolts exactly like the stock ones. These almost look identical, and they're even 12.9, so that should definitely be strong enough.
Okay, I'm gonna go with that as a first cut.
The drive shaft's back in, everything's all torqued up. I put a little bit of thread locker on there. Hopefully those bolts aren't stuck. I definitely don't want them to move, and before I forget, I'm gonna take a little paint pen as well and mark them so I can check on them a little bit later and see if they've turned at all. We're gonna put the muffler back in the car, get it hung up where that's supposed to be, and then we'll start putting this exhaust back in there with the chunk missing now, and that way we can kind of figure out where this segment is gonna go, and we'll start cutting and trimming that up so that it fits just in there perfectly. Tack weld it in, we'll pull the whole thing out again, and then we'll weld it all the way around.
Okay, let's get into the lineup of this. I think we got a pretty good shot at it. We're using these Matthews C-stands. These are actually like a nice pair of hands. It keeps everything solid when you're trying to do your weld. So we're gonna take the torch and put this piece together. We put a 12-inch piece on there to hopefully, make it work. And I'm ready, man. Let's fire it up.
We got that back piece of the exhaust tacked up, and when we put it all back together with the front on, we were a little bit worried that we may have cut it a little too short. Well, I might have cut it a little bit too short, but a little bit of massaging, and it seemed like it worked all right. The muffler kind of moves an inch or two back and forth back there, so my dad's gonna tack up the last part of the straight, and then we'll put it back in there, make sure it's fitting properly, and then he'll finish it up.
Yeah, we got a hanger right here that comes in. That's gonna pull it this way.
Oh wow, the hanger's way over there.
Yeah, but the box was like this. What we can do is we can maybe weld on something here to go out this way.
Yeah. I haven't been filming as much as I normally would like to, but we've got that exhaust all welded up. It's pretty much done, and we even made a custom hanger for it where there used to be one on the resonator. Now, I think we just gotta put this thing back in and bolt it all back up. It's pretty crazy how fast you can get things done when there's two people working at the same time. I feel like we're just been thrashing. It's only 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're pretty much finished. I might have to go take this thing for a drive. Here, you want to give it a couple revs? Oh man, I think it does sound better. Yeah, hopefully we don't run out of gas. I already ran out of gas twice in this car this week. I don't think there's a whole lot left in the muffler. I could hear a bunch of stuff rattling around when we had it out.
Yeah, I believe it. Maybe it was just all burned out, so it does sound great on the low end, just sitting there in the driveway. It's got a real kind of a, mountain lion growl to it.
Yeah, I like that. Sounds good. Well, it's been a pretty productive week for the Quattro, and also a fun one. Making the exhaust a little bit louder is always a little exciting. I think the Driveline is pretty much squared away. Seems like everything's working down there just fine, and I'm pretty sure the alternator belt's gonna hold. So I'm driving out to Spencer's house. It's a little ways. It definitely takes about an hour with traffic and everything. We're gonna do a little fluid change on our buddy's 911, who's also going on the rally with us, and just kind of kick back with the boys. So we'll see what they're up to. I got some gas this morning, and when I went to open the passenger door, the frickin' handle stopped working again. So that was something I just fixed. I guess I didn't do a very good job. So when I get there, I'm gonna pull the door panel off and see what the heck's going on. But yeah, not exactly how I wanted to spend the afternoon. I might even pull the cluster out and see if I can fix the speedometer too while I'm at it. But we're gonna go grab a beer with some friends after that over at Shellman for the little pre-meet. And then I think that's it. Next episode's gonna be the Overcrest rally, so you get to see how that goes. Don't forget to check your polarizer.